Welcome to Head to Heart Daily Devotionals. We are getting back into it. Today we're on week 3. I believe it is day 5. Wow. Just moving on. Time doesn't stop for nobody. Nope. Today our reading is Luke chapter 6, verse 20 to 26. 20 to 26. This is a great passage today. We are going to get some teaching. If you got one of those red letter Bibles, this reading is all in red, which is a great thing always because that means it's the words of Jesus. And what better words could there be? So let's get into it. We are jumping into verse 20. Grab a Bible and a journal if you don't got one already out. Because read along with this. I'm reading NIV, but it doesn't matter. Read whatever version you got. Make notes in your own Bible. Journal it down. This stuff is gold. So take value in these words. Verse 20, here we are. Looking at his disciples, he said, "Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God." Okay, so we're jumping into Jesus' teaching. Oftentimes, Jesus would use hyperbole. He would use language that maybe seems confusing, but very, very rich with knowledge. But a lot of times you had to really think into the things he's saying, really press in to fully understand them. And I think this is one of those instances. So we're gonna press into these words and see what we can glean, pull out of them. Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. A lot of what I've read talks about how this it is kind of a twofold meaning. One, blessed are you who are poor, because the people who are poor here on earth understand their need for God to a higher level than maybe someone who's rich. If you're rich here on this earth and all your needs seem to be met, really easy to forget you need God. But also this, I've heard that this is a reference to just the idea of being poor in spirit or humble. We've talked about humility before, but that is a huge thing with God, is knowing your place, knowing your standing, knowing just like I'm a sinner and this is a holy God that I need to connect with and worship with. And so knowing your standing and knowing I'm not worthy of you, but you still accept me and love me, and you've made a way to accept me. That is like a standing. That's the type of heart God's looking for, someone who's poor in spirit. And so I think that's like a dual meaning of that, because he says, for yours is the kingdom of God. Someone who knows their sinful position, but then accepts the forgiveness of God through Jesus. Those are the people to who the kingdom is given. So that's very important. Super important, and we'll see the reverse of that coming soon. So each one of these 3 things we're going to go over, it's going to be blessed, 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 but the next one is woe to those who. And so what we're about to see is just how we read blessed are the poor, there's going to be a reverse to that, so be watching for that. Very interesting how this is written and how Jesus taught and spoke. So verse 21, blessed are you who hunger now, for you will be satisfied. In Matthew, he says, blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And I think this is also, again, a spiritual, deep meaning. He's talking, blessed are you who hunger for God, who want him, who want his presence, who want and need him, because you will be satisfied. He will give to those who are seeking him. It reminds me of kind of how Jesus, when he was fasting, he's like, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from God. It's that hungering of the soul for God, connection with God. And I believe that's who he's talking about here. And now continuing there, blessed are you who weep now, for you will laugh. Blessed are you when people hate you, when they exclude you and insult you and reject your name as evil because of the Son of Man. Now this is a major blessing that Jesus has just said. He said, when people lash out at you, when people put you down, when people attack you literally because you're a follower of me, you will be blessed because of the Son of Man. Yeah. So he's saying you are blessed if that's you. And that's a huge blessing, because Just as Jesus suffered, he promises that those who follow him will face persecutions of their own. And so it's coming. And to know that he says, hey, you're blessed, you are counted as righteous with me, it's a big deal. And so that's a major promise. Okay, so if you fell into this category of being persecuted, listen to what verse 23 says. Rejoice in that day and leap for joy, because great is your reward in heaven. For that is how their ancestors treated the prophets. So just as the men of God before you had been persecuted, you now, if you are of God, just expect that. Expect to be persecuted, but know that God's got your back and that he will bless you. Verse 24. But woe to you who are rich, for you have already received your comfort. Woe to you who are well fed now, for you will go hungry. Woe to you who laugh now, for you will mourn and weep. He's showing us the reverse of that, right? This is the exact flipping of all the blessings he had just given. And so he's saying, right now, if you are the rich person who doesn't need anything and who's looking down at others who are poor, if that's you, if you're just sitting up in your high castle, it's like one day that's all gonna fade. One day you're well fed now, but you will go hungry. If you're just content in yourself and you're not focused on anything other than feeding yourself and making sure, looking out for number one, if that's your focus in life, one day that's gonna be flipped on its head, because you're gonna come before God and have to answer for a life lived in selfishness. Verse 26. Woe to you when everyone speaks well of you, for that is how their ancestors treated the false prophets. There's a big line. That's kind of a knife to the Pharisees' back too, because they're definitely the type of people that people speak well of like, look how righteous they are, look how great they are. So that is an important one. And again, that's the flip of what he had just said in verse 22. Blessed are you when people hate you. So we get this really cool contrast of what Jesus is saying, and especially saying to, if you're my follower, these are the things to strive to be. When I look at this entire passage that we just read, the thing that stands out to me is this. There's like a contrast between people who are seeking to satisfy themselves in the things of this earth here and now, and there's the people who are seeking to satisfy themselves in the things that are eternal, the things that are greater. And it doesn't matter if you're poor or hungry here and now, because your mind is set on, as long as I'm honoring God, as long as I'm doing the things that are going to last for an eternity. And so there's this contrast of the people who are just making sure they're good here and now versus the people who have that eternal mindset. And so the reflection question that I think just applies really good to this is, what are you living for here on this life? What is the main thing that you're focused on? Is it just making sure you're rich and happy and pleasured here on earth? Or is your focus on eternal things? Are you you're loving God and loving people? That's your goal. That's your mission in this life. You're probably somewhere in between those two extremes, but that's a really good thing to think through. And your prayer point just kind of rolls right off of that. It's, God, would you make us people who are focused on eternity, who are focused on connecting with you, the things we were created to do, to love you and to love people. Let that be our focus in this life, and not running after worthless things that will one day fade. There's a really, really good verse that's about the living hope found in Jesus. It's a hope that will never perish, fade, or be destroyed. It's a hope that will live on, and that hope can't be found in this world, because everything in this world will one day rot. It will one day fade. It will one day pass away. It will one day let you down. But the only living hope to be found is in Jesus. So just make that your prayer today, that your life would be focused on seeking after the thing that will never let you down. That was a powerful one today, as it always is when we're studying Jesus. Be sure to like and subscribe to these videos so that you get daily alerts of when we post the next one, which will be tomorrow. So be sure to check in for that. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good day. See you soon.